Welcome in. I'm Coach Hayes, followed in here with Scott Green. We are doing head on a swivel, rapid reaction, Georgia versus Mississippi State. Did we put four quarters together? I know the end score wasn't necessarily exactly what you wanted to see, but still a very dominant performance by the Georgia Bulldogs today in Starkville. Stay around. We're going to be right back talking about all things Georgia football.
Georgia Sports Autographs is built by collectors for collectors. They know what fans want because they've been in your shoes, hunting for that perfect piece, the right signature, in the right spot. At every signing, Georgia Sports Autographs make sure it's done right, using the proper ink, following best practices, and paying attention to every detail so you end up with a product you'll be proud to display. They've already worked with many of Georgia's top athletes, and their network gives them access to just about anything you can imagine. If you don't see it listed, don't assume it can't be done. Chances are they can get it for you. Georgia Sports Autograph tests themselves with every event, always improving, always delivering for the ultimate addition to your collection. Trust the team that treats every autograph like its own. Georgia Sports Autographs, where every signature tells a story.
We're happy to be with you this afternoon. Myself is Coach Hayes Huddle with Rapid Reaction, looking at Head on a Swivel right now with Scott Green on the side right here. And the first thing we got to say, Georgia wins, took a 41-21 win in Starkville today. A lot of unique designs of things that we saw. As always, we want to be able to see Georgia put together four consistent quarters of football. I think that was sort of the going pinning that we were trying to put on them as we did the preview show the other night. But Scott, just knee-jerk reaction right out of the gate was something that just sets well with you right now, maybe something that doesn't set with you right now.
It's all about resetting the line of scrimmage, and Georgia did that all day long. I think it was an outstanding job by physically dominating that, and everything just kind of bled out from there. Even in the stalled offensive drives, you watch Georgia hit 5 to 6 yards every time they handed off on average. And that's a physical Mississippi State team. We talked about it, gave them all the credit in the world. So they were going to play a full 60 minutes until, the game was out of reach. And they did. I just think Georgia had an outstanding response to a lot of the deficiencies against Florida. And, man, physicality wins out.
Yes, it does. And to me, what I see once we go head to head against them versus watching them on film, it really goes to show that basically once the game wore on after that first series where we were still scratching our heads about, Mississippi State going right down the field and scoring again, the line of scrimmage was set on both sides of the football, from the offensive and the defensive side. And to me, that's what wins ball games for you. You wear people down. People were dropping like flies even towards the third and fourth quarter for Mississippi State as well. And I just thought from the perspective of us running the football, establishing a great ground game today, obviously Nate Frazier having a great game today was needed, I think, to continue that 1-2 punch that him and Chauncey Bowens are doing in the running back room for their personnel groups. And just to be able to see Gunner go out again, 3 touchdown passes today, no interceptions, extends plays with his legs, has some good throws down the field vertically. I know a lot of them were complimented from the receivers catching and making explosive runs off of them as well. But from what I gather, if I had a take-home synopsis from this, I say we win the football game due to the line of scrimmage. You mentioned it, from the offensive side of the ball, being able to run it. I think after really the first series defensively, we really slowed down what they wanted to do and made them become one-dimensional, and that allowed us to kind of dictate where the ball went to. Even though we did give up some plays in the second half, I really felt like Georgia had control of the football once they had that long death march run there towards the end of the first half. And it was a really weird scenario transition. And I wanted to kind of talk to you about that before we get into the big plays or people that you saw that really stood out to you. What was one of the unique perspectives that you gathered from after, the ball was kicked off? Mississippi State has their first series go right down the field. They're 4 for 4 on third down conversions, 14-play drive, and they score. Initial reaction from that?
Kind of par for the course as a fan. I hate to say it that way. Credit to Levy, too, opening scripts against an offensive guy that runs the veer and shoot. Really, really frustrating. 4 for 4 on third down, especially in some of those long and actual most advantageous down and distance you can have defensively, and you still give it up. But a real positive to me was I already saw the line of scrimmage shifting, just like you said. It was really in Blake's pocket at some time, and then getting to him. Us getting to the quarterback multiple times in that one series, you're sitting there saying, I hate to give up 7. I hate that they had a excellent drive, but I'm really excited about as this game goes on, certain things. Because if for anyone who's watching, look, getting to the quarterback early and often is a tall tale sign of what is to come, because offensive line is going off a pre-designed play script. They know their responsibilities. They're getting mic calls and everything. Their job's relatively easy in terms of execution because they know what's coming. Very rarely does it deviate, especially in the Levy offense where they're going so fast, because that's how they are able to do it. It's confirming that next play call, not necessarily making that next play call, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It was frustrating. Some of the creases in the run game really frustrated me, but the adjustments that were made later on, I think you saw really make a difference. And the defensive line didn't penetrate nearly as much as I wanted early on. It was a lot of side to side, maintain, stonewall the line of scrimmage, but they were still dominating them in such a way you could see it being reset, but you didn't see them causing chaos and havoc in the background.
Right. Uniquely as you continue to play the hurry up kind of NASCAR offense that he was doing in that first half or first couple of series anyway, I noticed a lot of D linemen laying on people. Seemingly we got to the quarterback only with our linebackers again. Raylan Wilson with 1.5 sacks, CJ with 1 sack. We had Gabe Harris on the big hit on Blake, the quarterback hurry that really took him out of the ball game. To me, that was one of the turning points in the game. I really think to myself as I look at the third series to me was big because we had just had the fumble on the end around on inside the 5-yard line by Dylan Bell, and then they get the ball back, get out of the shadow of their end zone, and we end up making them turn the ball back over to us, and that was really huge. Quintavious Johnson, number 33, causing the fumble, and Chauncey Bowens capitalizing on the offensive break right there, number 33 as well, to put us on the board, and from there, to me, that's where we set the tone going forward. So, we can sit here and talk all day long about, the people who stood out offensively, but who was one that you really just saw and just said, man, that's great to see, or the fact of just how he contributed to today's offensive production?
Offensive production, I would say one of the biggest things was Zachariah Branch being that give me gold guy on third down. A lot of awkward third down and distances for Georgia today that they just converted on outside of the early offset where either they stub their toe, they stall out, they turn it over. To me, that was the magic down, because the most backbreaking thing you can do to a defense is to have them win 2 reps in a row by keeping you in these awkward looks and awkward down and distances and still successfully moving the ball. Nate Frazier is my game ball, though. I think this was a long overdue game for him where he stepped down, planted the foot, and just fought upfield. Not a lot of dancing, but a lot of attacking. And I think that showed today.
And, you've got shoegate going on as well. I don't know if you know that long gap scheme run down the sideline. I don't know if how many people, because they didn't really make a big deal out of it on TV. But, he's running without a shoe. The kid that missed the tackle at the second level ripped his shoe off, and he ran the other 40-something yards without a shoe on his left foot. I thought that was very interesting to keep his traction all the way down there. But great game by Nate Frazier, no doubt. Again, complimenting what Chauncey Bowens has done. And, you think about the play where we do score after we recover the fumble. KJ recovers the fumble that Quintavious sets up. We had really 2 dead plays on first and second down, just like you mentioned. If you look at that actual drive where Chauncey scores, I've got my notes here. Basically, you've got a swing pass to Zachariah Branch that has a no gain. Then they set up play action to try to hit Lucky on the follow on the left-hand side, and it's incomplete. And then they throw the one jump ball to Elias Williams. It seems to me that they're going to Elias a lot more, but we're seemingly getting that one jump ball play a game, it seems now. And I said back at the Auburn game when I did the show on that one, is that they need to continue to do that, to show at least 1 or 2 50-50 balls to that kid, because he's a freaking athlete first off, but he's a freak of nature at his size. I really wish I could pull up the picture right now of me standing beside him when I met him 2 weekends ago at the autograph signing. I'm 5'10", so I mean I'm not necessarily a tall guy, but I look like his kid. I mean, he absolutely is a giant. And that, to me, thinking about him going up and making that catch and coming down without really being able to catch himself, I mean, his full body weight hitting the ground and he bounces back up like a rubber band. I mean, it was just phenomenal to watch that and see that come out to play. But Nate Frazier, no doubt, great day running the football. I think he had up in the neighborhood. I can actually pull his stats up right here. 181 rushing yards. I believe we had in the neighborhood of about 280 total rushing yards as a team. Phenomenal situation. But let's go on down the list here. Let's talk about Noah Thomas. We knew with Kobe Young, obviously having his season-ending injury, that Noah Thomas was going to have to step up. And I had even mentioned that C.J. Wiley might even be that person that steps up into that role as well. How big was Noah Thomas today in the offensive production that we saw?
Kind of a nail in coffin play where he catches the ball early and then yards after catch just explodes. And again, kudos to Zachariah Branch. That block downfield, or at least just getting in the way. Guys, that's the stuff that makes winning football teams, is that selfless play of, look, I'm not getting the ball. I know I'm not getting the ball, but I'm still going to punish the guy in front of me all the way down the field until he quits or the play's over. And Noah Thomas's awareness in that just showed why Georgia was just so interested and glad that they had him on the staff and the roster. I think Noah is starting to shape into his own. Obviously, he's not Colby Young. They are big profile X receivers, but we don't need to say body to body makes player to player, matchups the same. So I'm so happy for Noah. Again, there's been some plays where we're seeing, jump balls, 50-50 balls to the outside where he's been dropping them. And it's like, man, just a little bit here, an inch there. And I think Noah showed you, even outside of those, that's what makes him so integral to what Georgia's going to have to do moving forward without Colby. I'm so glad he had a good day. It's one of those games where truly you're hoping for a breakout. It's got to happen. You're this close in so many areas, and finally everything comes together.
I can't wait to break down the play, because basically what you have is, I call it 135 boot, and you've got basically the concept of the flood off of the boot action, where you've got somebody in the low, you got somebody in the medium, and you got somebody in the high. And Noah's coming across on the drag on the medium. But what I like is, I'm going to say it in 3 tiers here. First off, Mike Bobo has found a niche with Gunnar Stockton in his offensive play calling. He understands what Gunnar is good at. He's beginning to realize that, and he's putting him into productive, high efficient plays offensively because of that. When he showed that action and then booted out of it, and then I watched him not only not continue to drift because he was on the short side of the field, but to put his foot in the ground and go downhill to find Noah getting into his vision on that play was absolutely phenomenal. Again, I can't wait to actually break that play down, because then Noah gets to do what we've been finally watching on all the highlight films that he does as well, is being able to run with the football after the catch. I think probably why he hasn't been playing in front of Kobe, or why we haven't seen the Twin Tower look out there, is because I think Noah was still struggling with the playbook. And also too, I don't know about it, but Noah's not as physical, I don't think, on the outside like Kobe is. He's learning it, but he's learning it at a pace that would be normal for a kid coming in from the transfer portal and having to deal with those physical DBs that he probably wasn't having to deal with, I guess, when he was over at Texas A&M, which is odd, because you would think that he would have a good understanding of what SEC DB play is like. But it just seems to me that he's beginning to get acclimated to that physicality, being out there and fighting for those 50-50 balls, getting open, finding zones for Gunnar to throw, and seeing some success. So let's talk about that drive at the end of the first half. I sit there and think, first off, it's unique that during that time we get a trolling from Coach Kirby Smart. I don't know if you remember or not, but last year in the Sugar Bowl against Notre Dame came out and did the same thing to us on that punt scam, where they looked like they were punting and they were running the whole offense onto the field, and we panicked. Coach Smart thought that it was actually not legal to do something like that, and they caught us off guard. So I find it kind of funny for us to run a little punt scam. They call our bluff, call timeout, and then we run it again just to basically get an encroachment call. But I remember that drive, I wrote here on my notes, slow offensive series, because during that series, you had, first off, on the defensive side, you had Anthony Evans with a big explosive catch. That new quarterback came in on first and second down to expend plays. extend plays. You had the turnover on downs on fourth, on fourth and like 3 or 4. He ended up dropping it in the flat. CJ Allen was on him, but he dropped the football to give us the ball back. We had the lucky targeting, which was terrible because that kid didn't move for a solid 2 or 3 minutes. I was really worried about that. Then we had the defensive pass interference on Jaden Reddle. And then after that, we get the touchdown to Zachariah Branch on the jailbreak screen. And that was all based on the punt scam that we had to extend that drive as well. So all of those things happened on the same drive. You have the lucky targeting, you have the defensive pass interference to Reddle, you have the fake punt twice that gets the encroachment call to extend the play, and then you get the play to Zachariah Branch for the touchdown. I found it unique that Coach Bobo went to the Fox play first, where it looked like we were running it to Zachariah, and we got the explosive to Humphreys that was setting us up in first and goal where we had the fumble by Dylan Bell, and then ran the screen later for success. So that was very good to see as well. But just kind of take me through your thoughts as you saw that, sort of the march that we took on in the end of the first half that kind of really took us in control of the game.
I think Bobo has excellently put defenses in a bind. And like you said, so that London Humphreys catch, obviously everyone's seeing, Zachariah throwing his hands up, getting ready, which Mississippi State defended well for most of the game.
Yeah.
But by doing that, someone's biting and someone's got to backfill London Humphreys. And I'm not going to lie, too, there's a huge aspect of being a receiver that people don't think about. That's being able to fake a block, release, and physically get off and still make your cuts. And don't get too excited. Just do that job and sell it really, really well. Oscar Delp's really good at it, but man, Bobo really has just entered into another level, especially with being able to establish a look, a set of motion, a certain play. I mean, how many times did jet motion offset a lot of what Mississippi State wanted to do, and he got Georgia leverage in another area?
Yes.
And so that to me was just masterclass, because it was frustrating at first because you saw how successful Georgia was on the average play. And then they kind of stumbled and you're thinking, oh, geez, here we go again. But then that sequence right before half, the second quarter's been Georgia's weakest. The first, they start off slow, but they at least kind of feel things out. And you see Georgia be successful, getting some points on the board. But the second quarter, it just seems like Georgia tapers off. This is the first time I saw Georgia be really aggressive in a positive way and finish drives. And a lot of that has to do with Bobo saying, look, free safety, strong safety, Mike, Will, doesn't matter. I'm going to make your life hell.
That's very nice. Very well put, too. When you see that to me gave us sort of that back-breaking momentum you take into halftime. And knowing the way that we have played, UGA has played in the second half, you feel very confident coming out from halftime. So when you come out, I say out of the gate, it's amazing that we get to see these two things take place. On the first series, we have the explosive run for the 58-yard, 59-yard rushing touchdown by Nate Frazier. I'm going to say this. We found a gap scheme that really worked. We ran the buck, which is both guards pulling instead of the backside guard tackle or the center guard pulling like we do sometimes. It was the true buck type sweep, and we were G'ing it on the front side. So Micah Morris was going to be the wrapper, and then you were going to get Dontrell Glover on the kick out on the end. We were down blocking play side. That play was there all day. I don't know why in the same formation that Jeff Levy and his defense continued to line up that way, but we exploited it a lot, and Nate Frazier took advantage of that, taking it 59 yards to the house on the first series. And then we have the big boot play from Gunner to Noah Thomas on the second series. And to me, that was the back-breaking component to the offensive side of the football and really put us in play to where you're feeling very good about what we've done offensively. Gunner Stockton, a lot of his receiving yards from his receivers was after the catch. But, the play to Elias Williams, the play to Oscar Delp, obviously the play to Noah Thomas, and then, of course, to Zachariah Branch as well. Just really kind of complimented and put a nice bow on the offensive production from your quarterback, throwing for almost 300 yards with 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. And again, just, man, taking care of the football. I think we don't think about that too much. I mean, if you think about his 2 interceptions this year, we were playing Kentucky. I really think Coach said, listen, let's try this right here. Let's throw this up on the seam route. I remember that play very well. He actually could have thrown it to Delp outside on the rail route, but he decided to go down the seam. It was probably his worst thrown ball all season long. I think he was just taking a chance. I think they told him to take a chance, and it didn't come out in the wash for him. And then the play against Florida where Noah Thomas should have caught the dig in, where he was coming in on the in route, hit him right in the hands, bounced off and deflected right into the defender's hands. But this kid is taking care of the football. He's extending plays with his legs when he needs to. But what I'm beginning to see is a comfortable presence in the pocket. And when you see that and see him being able to move when he needs to, finding the right place in the pocket, still delivering the football, and good things are happening to him. So just final reflection on the offensive side before we move defensively.
I think it's perfectly said. There were a lot. The pass pro was excellent today. Obviously, there were some moments where Gunner knew he was going to take a shot, took a shot, made a successful play. Unfortunately, those things are going to happen. They may bring more men than we have to block. But Gunner had all day long. And I really, really want to emphasize what you said, Coach. His confidence and the availability of the pocket and being able to step up, step back, a little left, a little right, however he's got to do it to flow with the pocket. He's not just bailing out and scrambling and looking for the easy answer. Gunner is letting the processing happen naturally, where he's not processing so fast like he was doing at the beginning of the year. He was processing so fast he missed something that was supposed to be open. He would look at it before the break happened. And also, your internal clock, guys, speeds up when you don't trust your offensive line. I mean, you look at Blake and what he was able to do early on with the opening script and how things kind of changed when we started laying wood to him and he started having to pick himself up and he started getting touched and hit. That totally changes your mentality as a quarterback because you're thinking, look, I'm one or two things away from another sack where my arm's back, and that's, the worst case scenario. But man, I'm so happy that Gunner and the offensive line are gelling in a way where he feels very comfortable in the pocket.
Very well said, my friend. Gunner Stockton, like I said, finishing the day 18 of 29 for 3 touchdowns, one going to Zachariah, to Oscar Delp, and, of course, to Noah Thomas on the long run after the catch on the boot. Nate Frazier leading the running backs with 181 yards, 12 carries, 1 tutty. Noah Thomas again coming out, and I'm glad to see him, take a place of what we've got to have from him from the Kobe Young perspective, with 3 receptions with the big long touchdown run as well. And just overall, I look at it, I think we were just south of 600 yards total offense. You look at Gunner Stockton again, no turnovers. We can't talk about how productive that is and how he continues to just have that steady play, to where, to me, the media is going to talk him up a little bit. I think nobody's going to give him necessarily the Heisman hype. I don't really want him to have the Heisman hype, honestly. If he continues to produce the way he is, he can do exactly what he's doing right now, take us into the playoffs, play that consistent football, and we're going to see some good things from him. So when we talk about that, on the offensive side, obviously, we got to go to the defensive side. Raylan Wilson, C.J. Allen with sacks today. Raylan had the half with C.J. on one of those. K.J. Bolden leading the team in total tackles today. What overall perspective of the defensive side of the ball that you saw that you wanted to maybe talk about?
Early on, Mississippi State was able to add some creases into the run game, and I think that was due to Georgia's, I don't want to say passive, but more passive than you'd want on defensive front, where those natural rushing lanes happen if an offensive lineman is able just to leverage in a specific way, even if it's the call for the defensive lineman. So the defensive lineman says, hey, they're in a 2-eye and they shade into the A-gap. Well, that could actually naturally help the play, because if you watch, that running back's coming across the line doing his read step, and he's filling in whatever rush lane's open, whatever hole opens up. So that early on had me a little concerned, but with some adjustments in alignment, I thought we did an absolutely outstanding job of killing the run game outside of a few just really good plays from a really good player. Like, remember, guys, Mississippi State just got this running back. So you've watched them without this guy for a majority of the season when they were playing tight games against much better rosters and more established staffs. So a lot of that, hat tipping going to him. But one thing I was really, really surprised about is how we were able to generate pressure out of so many different looks. And we were able to manipulate Mississippi State having their, a guard or tackle doesn't realize there's a man on the inside. He's still looking to that most outside man, not passing anybody off. And that tackle's locked up. So you would think, I gotta keep scanning. I gotta find work. Georgia just still beat it. I mean, there were so many times that C.J. Allen just had a free release. Raylan Wilson had a free release. And to me, the most spectacular play is when Raylan Wilson breaks down, slows down, doesn't launch himself at Blake's feet. He doesn't launch himself. He just stagger steps and makes sure he is square and gets that massive sack. I
Yes.
think those moments have to happen more and more and more. Chris Cole needs to learn from that, needs to use that film, because
Hmm.
I'm telling you guys, there are so many plays made in the backfield that we don't even remember because contact was made, poor tackle, sloughs off, a good player makes a good play, on to the next down.
Yeah. I'd like to just talk real quick. 225 girl, go dogs. Definitely go dogs today. Welcome into the show. Emarello, I know you put it in a go dogs a while ago. Enrique, appreciate you being in here with us. Go dogs, definitely. Bill, appreciate you being in here with us as well. I know Patrick was very happy to see Noah Thomas have a good game today. Really appreciate you being a supporter of Coach Hayes Huddle and being a part of Head on a Swivel today with me and Scott. And it's always a pleasure to see Patrick having a good day, especially with the jersey that he has of a Noah Thomas jersey that part of Georgia Sports Autograph. So we got a chance to get in his hands. So that's awesome to see as well. Scott, great points. I sit there and think as I look through the processes of all the things that we did defensively today, the one thing I liked is that we got a chance to rotate a lot of guys. There was, we still saw Ja'Cory out there the first series. I was kind of down in the dumps about that, but it was very quickly Zion Branch next series. So what I'm beginning to feel from a coach's perspective is they're trying to challenge these guys. Say, listen, we want to get game film on both of y'all against a competitor, and we're going to see how you play today. And I'm really interested as I go back through the All-22 film, what I'm going to see from those guys and how they produce. I'm still wondering, when we're matched up in man and the number 2 receiver is being covered by one of the safeties, either the nickel or the strong, and we are 8 to 10 yards off of them and they're running the quick out, how we can't switch off of that. I don't know why we couldn't figure out a switch to that, to where the corner guy sits up on the flat out, or we're either bailing. What I've noticed a lot too is that on the short side of the field into the boundary, whoever is the jack or the stand up, sometimes we will bail him like almost like a zone blitz. We'll bring another backer for the 4-man pressure. So it's a simulated pressure. But Chris, today I saw a couple of times again as the jack position, him and Quinn being pulled out like they're a flat defender. And they're so close to intercepting that football that's going out into the flat. If you watch it and get a chance to see it, you'll see where Chris is in the flat zone and misses the ball by about a foot. If he's got his head on a swivel to kind of get an idea, pardon the pun there, considering that's the title of our show, to have his head on a swivel and be able to see where that, offensive receiver is at, to be able to get into that throwing lane so they can't be the quick throw. I think that's a perfect call, something defensively that we need, because a lot of times you're putting those guys in stress, especially if those guys are getting gap scheme run to them and they have to go honor the run look, and then it's an RPO play action off of that and they're throwing out to the flats. Ole Miss did it to us. Lane Kiffin took advantage of that. Alabama took advantage of that on that play. So I think defensively, as you continue to watch after the first series, I think we began to take a little bit of an advantage of what they were doing, and we saw more grit at the line of scrimmage. There wasn't really any more explosive runs. We finally did get at least a quarterback hurry with Gabe Harris making a great move on their left tackle and causing Blake, to basically be taken out of the game after that play right there. But still, only sacks from the second level at the linebacker level. We have still yet to get any defensive linemen to the quarterback, which continues to blow me away. But overall, defensively, I think we improved through the game like we normally do, while getting a lot of people different rotations. Because at one point in time, I don't know if you know this or not, Scott, I was watching in one of the series where Janelle got hurt. He wasn't long term. He came back in the game, but they actually had Zion Branch and Rashawn Dinkins out there at the same time. Rashawn Dinkins is a thumper, but he's in the same class as Dontrell Glover and Juan Gatson. He's a true freshman that came in July, and getting a chance to get out there and get reps in an SEC ball game is only going to make him a better player as well. So I really feel like from what you've said and what I have tried to contribute to this, that defensively, you just want to see us continue to try and get better and improve. But it's one of those things where I don't understand why we can't seem to figure out a way to get off the field on the first series. Today we're sitting there thinking 4 quarters of football. And today, after that first series, I think every Georgia fan in the world was sitting there going, okay, whatever. It's the same old, same old. And then again, we just kind of lock and key took over, said, you're not getting any more, and made it really hard for them for the rest of the game. So, when you look at the total yards, 567 to 322, turnovers 1-1, first downs 30 to 18, penalties. I don't know if you know this or not, Scott. I think we're in the top 10 of the least penalized teams in the nation. We were number 9 last week when I was looking up totalities. So I think we're in the top 10 still, which I know a lot of people who are non-Georgia fans says that figures, third down efficiency, after the 4-4, they're 8 of 16 overall, 7 of 12 for Georgia, and the time of possession, winning the TOP is always big as well because you run the football efficiently. Mm-hmm. So you think about it, running the football efficiently, establishing the line of scrimmage, and basically imposing your will upon that team is going to eventually cause them to finally break. And we saw that. We saw guys going down left and right. Their quarterback goes out. And, it's not like that we were delivering these killer blows to them. We were just getting after them. And over a period of time, that breakdown just caused, I think that's a mental breakdown, as well as the fact eventually it just gives you the will to give up. So that's just my thoughts there on that. Any concluding thoughts on that?
Relentless aggression sets the terms of how the game's going to be played. And I think that Georgia was a picture-perfect example of, if you continue to have relentless aggression and you pressure from both sides of the ball, you're going to have a game, like you said, where the other team either gives up, fights you, but just can't keep fighting. And I'm really proud because, for the nation's media sake, this was supposed to be a trap game because, Texas is next week. This team continues to show me that they're special in a lot of areas. Again, I'm not calling out for a title shot. I'm just going to handle this week by week like this team is. Because to come into this game and to dominate the way they dominated for a majority of the game was huge. We do not need to hand wave away something like this. It could be a stepping stone to seeing more and more of this, because it seems like Georgia is a prove it to myself team. What I mean by that. So Georgia in the second half knows, hey, look, we're going to handle business. We don't worry about the scoreboard. We're going to do what our jobs are. And we're really going to take advantage and build a lot of momentum going into the game late. Well, we talked about this earlier on this week. I was looking for that one play, that one moment where all that momentum is gathered early and generating those plays. Because that's when you set the terms, Georgia's defense is about making the offense be limited, basically boxing with one hand behind its back, and on top of it being so relentless in pursuit that you're going to make a mistake and then we're going to make you pay for it. This is the first time I saw a mistake made early by Mississippi State in response to the other fumble by Dillon. You have that, and you absolutely exploit it. And from there on, I was telling everyone else I was watching with, I said, look, Georgia's going to control this game. I'm watching the lines of scrimmage go backwards, not forwards for them, and forwards, not backwards for us. And so I'm really, really happy that the team responded to a lot of the outside noise this way and proved to themselves, look, we can play at least 50 minutes of a 60-minute game.
Yeah.
And I think that prove it to yourself moment's what makes this Georgia team really take it in and believe it.
Yes. I was going to say two things. First off, I think that's my nephew there with this comment. I feel like the fans' first and easiest reaction is to blame Schumann for all our early defensive issues. Is that fair or just another case of fans overreacting? Brian, I think that's a great question. Honestly, I'm going to let Scott answer it, and I'm going to follow up with my thoughts on it as well. Go ahead, Scott.
So a perfect example of a play where I do put it on Schumann, and it's both. And again, nuanced questions like that, it's a great question. You're not going to get an easy yes or no answer. Unfortunately, one, I'm not as good as Coach Hayes, so we'll see what Coach says. But perfect example, you come out of half, it's Ole Miss at Athens. You're off man on a 2nd and 10. You're protecting the sticks. You're asking Dalen Everett on, I think it was a quick hitch route, to run upfield 6 yards, and he is isolated. He is locked in man off, giving him cushion. And now he's going to make an open field tackle against a really, really good receiver against a very, very good offense. And I think those disadvantageous positions that we see, especially in off man, and like Coach is saying, we need to start using man-on-demand principles. Now, that's old school. That's what I was taught was, hey, look, you can still have man principles, man coverage, but passing it off between guys to make sure you're not, generating those natural windows that happen because you're having to do a lot of awkward stuff to stay with your guy. But those moments I put on Glenn, I think sometimes he tries to protect too much. Like he doesn't want to give up something to gain something. I want to be as protective of everything as I can each play. And it's just like, Coach, honestly, defensive coordinators, you got to be somewhat of a risk taker. You got to know, hey, look, if I call this, I'm giving this up and just eat it. And I think Georgia did a lot more of that today. But early on, opening scripts, Levy's a really good offensive coach too. So I'll give Levy credit. They've studied you and studied you and studied you, and they're going to look for your most vulnerable looks and your most vulnerable personnel, and they're going to attack it. So it's frustrating. I think some of this is on Coach Schumann. I think some of it's on personnel. And I think Georgia is finally slowly starting to phase in a battle at safety that could really change a lot of things between Zion Branch and Ja'Cory Thomas.
I believe you on that in all regards. And I do think for what we're dealing with out of the gate, typically as a defensive coordinator, you watch all the film you can. You can watch up to 5 or 6 games, honestly, and feel like you're fully prepared for every formation, every adjustment that you can. As a defensive coordinator, it's very tough, honestly, because when you are a DC, you have to prepare for every single possibility that that team can throw at you. So if you think about it up to this point, like if we had played 8 ball games in high school, typically I had 6 to 7, maybe all 8 games that other team had played. And I would break down every play. I would have a barnyard session because you'd always have teams that wanted to run trick plays. You had to be prepared for that. You had to be prepared for all their inside game. You had to be prepared for all their motions pre-snap and be able to adjust to it. And you had to, just like you said, when you're going to bring heat and you know you're going to be sacrificing somewhere else, the 11 that are out there need to understand that so that they don't get home. There is a chance that opportunity will present itself. But I really felt like when you look at an offensive series of groups of series, is that I knew that typically most offensive teams had about base 5 run plays. They wanted to run 5 plays that they could run in their sleep. So those were the plays that we tried to defend the most. And then from there, you say, listen, they will run this. They haven't run it in 3 weeks, but that's still something that they can do out of this. But what I was always trying to do was to stop their top 5. I always wanted to let them know, hey, this is the 5 base run plays. They may run it out of 16 formations, but you're going to get these 5 base defensive run plays. From an offensive perspective, if the quarterback was a rollout quarterback or a +1 quarterback like what Gunner is, we had to be prepared for the quarterback as an extra running back in the box. So we had to prepare all week long on inside drill of being able to do it. Today, we ran the Q read power very well. I don't know if you saw that play or not, but, Gunner being able to pull that out, reading that in, the end ran upfield to tackle the jet back, and we pull and run power underneath it. That's the way it's supposed to be run. 100%. And so from a defense's perspective, I know that the first series was very much trying to absorb what they wanted to do because they were lining up fast. They wasn't giving us a chance to exchange personnel. And sometimes that can be tough when you're trying to do different things with the personnel that you have in on the field. So what I really don't like that I saw in the first series is, like I told you, after about the 8th or 9th play, I saw a lot of D linemen. They were tired. You could tell they were, the conditioning of them, they were laying on people. I didn't really feel like we were pursuing with relentless abandonment to get to the football. That really bothered me as well. At times, it just seems like we have one person that could make the tackle, and if he doesn't, we're in trouble. I'm going to go back and watch on film, but I remember in the first series they ran a gap scheme, and if Quintavious Johnson doesn't come off of it and make the tackle, Raylan's getting blocked by the guard pulling, and there's nobody outside the tackle box after that. They would have had another explosive run. We got one guy to the football that makes the tackle, and a lot of times when you see those explosives from Texas A&M, it's because that one guy doesn't make the tackle. AKA, I have on here in one series alone, Ja'Cory Thomas misses a tackle. There was 2 back-to-back where they both missed a tackle. I wish I could find it here, but one of the smartest defensive plays that happened today was KJ Bolden's pass interference on Anthony Evans. A lot of people don't think about that, but that would have been a touchdown. There's no way in the world, unless they just overthrow the receiver. If he don't hold him on that play, it's a touchdown. And that would have definitely changed the momentum concept in that game as well, because after that led to because I'm looking at it here, that was the same series where we made them fumble. Quintavious makes them fumble. KJ gets the recovery, and then we go down the field and score on that series after our fumble. So that was a weird exchange of plays, but a big play on defense as well. So, when I think about the whole principle of what the question states, a lot of people are always going to, just like with Bobo, you're going to have a knee-jerk reaction to think the coach is the problem. The problem to me is just that you're waiting and playing conservative in that first series. You're a little tired from the process of a 14-play drive. And, of course, it extends to a touchdown. And now you've got all their plays that really you think they want to do and hang their hat on. And now you can make your adjustments from that, which they did. Is there some things I would love to see differently done? Sure. But a lot of times you don't realize it's a process of playing chess, not checkers. And a lot of people who are fans that are going to fan are going to play checkers. They react from the checkers reaction. They don't realize there's more to it than just that one series. And if you can get into that mindset, it really does help you have a better understanding of what it means to be a coach. When you've got 11 players, and at any given time, even though now they've got 9 games under their belt, you still have 5 to 6 players on that defensive side of the ball that are seeing play for the first time, where they are the official starter, not a rotator, but they are the ones that are out there. It's just like Gunnar Stockton. I mean, other than his start in a Sugar Bowl last year, I mean, this is his official 10th start in SEC play. And you've got a lot of guys on the defensive side of the ball that are in the same position. But the thing you want to see is continual growth and improvement from that position, because a lot of teams don't have the mental toughness to handle what happened at the beginning of that game, and they let it unravel from there, and then it gets worse. To me, a good team to a great team is a team that adjusts from those mistakes, adjusts from what they do, and they're able to get better as the game goes on. So that's what I see. Definitely not a knee-jerk to fire Glenn Schumann. I wish him well, because more than likely I think Glenn Schumann's probably last year as a Georgia Bulldog coach. I really do think someone's going to snap him up this year to be a head coach somewhere else. I wouldn't doubt it if we did see him go somewhere else this year. But I think Glenn Schumann is good for Georgia football. He has been good. He's had a lot of good players over the years and has recruited very well. Those are a lot of guys that are there because of Glenn Schumann. So I'm very excited to know he's our coach, even though I know we are kind of scratching our head about a lot of the defensive side of the play. So anything to add to that, Scott?
Yeah, I think we need to be careful too with understanding a coach can only call what they know will work, and they can line you up perfectly and the play still not be made. And I think that'd be a fair assessment from all fans is, look, we've seen play after play after play where Glenn has drawn it up for a TFL, a potential sack, a pick, and has done everything right that you can to put guys in positions to make plays. And really, it's been a coin flip whether or not Georgia makes them. And we're not used to that. Really, Georgia was like an 80-20 team. 80% of the time you gave them a chance to get an interception, they were getting the interception. And that 20% was very rare. And it's now reverse. And a lot of that has to do with youth. A lot of that has to do with kind of the personnel situation Georgia's trying to figure out, because some of the guys, to be frank, are just not doing their jobs very well. The defensive line is really young too. Now, Jordan Hall's a big loss. So you got to think there's a lot of young people there that are trying to coordinate and get better as football players that are still learning to play. And
Yes.
one thing that I think we need to take into account, look, guys, this is a totally different college football than what you're used to. It is not 14 where you lose once, you're done, the season's over. This is all about slingshotting. Now, what do I mean by that? Look, build that momentum to be playing your best football in December and January. Ohio State showed you that what you can do with one really ugly loss and one really close loss. And so we don't need to overreact and point fingers at staff every single time, but they certainly deserve it sometimes. I think there's even play sequences Mike Bobo wish he'd have back. I think it was a run that maybe got a yard and then the two 50-50 shot balls downfield. And I'm sure Bobo's like, well, darn, probably I could have ran it, got us in a good third down in distance where we were at and done something else. So as fans, just don't be overtly critical of Glenn and just understand, this defense is what it is until the personnel changes and they grow up. I think the commenter made a good point. Look, they're super young.
Yes. And what people have got to understand too, when you're out there with them every day, they give you a certain sample size of plays that make you feel confident to say, I can put him in the game because I trust him. And believe it or not, there's obviously players out there that are giving the trust to these coaches, because I know they're having to sit down as a staff. And Schumann is sitting there with T-Rob and Dante and with, golly bun, why am I losing? Trey Scott and Uzo Deribe. And they're sitting there in the defensive staff room. And he's going, listen, we got good play this week from Zion Branch. He's questioning to me whether or not he could overtake Ja'Cory or not. So, hey, let's rotate them out there on Saturday. I want to see both of them get equal amounts of reps. So one series apiece. Same thing goes. I noticed Chris Jones is getting up reps at the jack position with Quintavious Johnson. You need that level of competition because you never want complacency by your position group and your position players. To me, that's what breeds great competition. I think that's what made our running back room so good this year, and the consistency that we've seen from the running back room is that when Nate started having fumbling issues, Chauncey just took right over for him and started producing. And all of a sudden, when you go out to practice that week, that's making Nate have to step up his game if he wants to have any opportunity to be back out on the field. And we're seeing that from the running back room specifically with what Nate did today. And then you look and still Chauncey had a good day as well running the football. So, that's the things that you want to see from the offensive side of the ball as well as the defensive side of the ball. My main criteria, if there's really a take-home message I could give you, Scott, and to our people that are watching, is where would we be defensively if we don't have the type of defensive line we had in 2021 and 2022? What if we don't have Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter and Devontae Wyatt? And, what if we had, say, just a good defensive line similar to what we've got this year with all the experience we have behind it? Do we produce like we do in 2021 and 2022? I think where it comes down to it, the defensive line is where we've got to change if we really want to see this defense have an uptick to where we're feeling confident in what they're doing on the field consistently. And until we get something from Horton, Miller, Joseph Jonah, goodness gracious, Nnamdi Aboko, all of those guys, trying to see somebody, even Gabe Harris, who truly plays a true DN on that one side over there, having the hurry today. I think if you start seeing more of what Gabe did today, that changes the whole dilemma we see in the secondary. It ceases everything that we have right now as sort of a question about what we are defensively. Because right now I have to just characterize our defense as being good, not great, and certainly not elite. And that's not on Schumann. That's just trying to put the right pieces of the puzzle together, trying to play trying to play chess, not checkers. And you're having to go through the growing pains of watching young kids make mistakes while other kids are doing exactly their job. But unfortunately, everybody says, well, let's just put in another player. Well, that other player's not obviously doing his job either because he would be starting in front of that kid that's out there on Saturdays. So, it's very easy to say, let's just put in somebody else. But, I'm kind of with you there, Scott. I think Zion Branch is one of those right now that I really feel like needs to have more playing time over Jacory. And it's just what I've seen from the sample size of plays that he's had from Florida and now today. I'm really interested to see on film how he does today. So, but anyway, Scott, we've been on for about 45 minutes. We do appreciate the people who have come in and commented. I wanted to see if we had any other comments over here. With that, I was going to say Dog 85. Remember, Kirby is the coach. He is definitely the captain. You're exactly right. You think about it right now. There are 5 Power 4 programs, 4 of them in the SEC that don't have their head coach right now, working with an interim coach. We are very blessed to have Coach Smart and people who absolutely made the comments after, say, the Auburn game and even earlier in the year saying to fire this man. Believe it or not, you don't realize how good you've got it as a Georgia football fan. We are spoiled because we witnessed probably 2 of the most unprecedented seasons our teams could do in the 2021-2022 season. We are a very blessed football fan base, and we need to understand that because we have a hell of a head coach who does his job, who is definitely understanding every nook and cranny of every team that we play. And he is doing the best job of putting the best coaches out there to coach our kids up and to make them better, players. I really like what his comment was. He said, I have to keep my focus on trying to produce good young men and fine young athletes on the football field, because if I'm trying to meet the expectations of the people outside our fan base or our fan base in general, I'm always going to be failing. He said, so it's very easy to get lost in that or lost in the weeds with that. He said, I'm always going to focus on the potential of what I'm doing with my student athletes that are out there on the field and making them better better players, better men, and hopefully, opportunities to make a lot of money as they go to the NFL. So, but thank you for being in here tonight, Scott. As always, it's a pleasure to be with you this evening. Got a lot of football left right now. We got Missouri and Texas A&M. It looks like Texas A&M has a 7-0 lead in Columbia right now with 24 seconds in the second quarter. Any final thoughts, Scott, as we dismiss for the evening?
Yeah, Georgia made history. It's one of the few teams in all of college football that has 900 wins under their belt. And just to add on to the Kirby Smart being the greatest head coach that's currently coaching, guys, look, programs would kill to have a 10-win season every 10 years.
Yeah.
We are so insanely spoiled that we are title contenders every single year. Make no mistake about it. Georgia, outside of Tier 3 plays against Notre Dame, that scoreboard misled a lot of people to what that game was. Turnovers and a special teams play away. So remember, guys, this is the youngest team Kirby has had under his tenure. 40+% are very young freshmen. You have the talent, but this is a massive, massive ask for a coaching staff to grow these guys while playing a really, really tough schedule. Every team you're playing is a better version of themselves than they were last year, minus 1 or 2. And so, with that being said, understand, hand wave a lot of stuff that your concerns, give them a lot of credence for what they're doing and what they're getting better at. Because, guys, look, I'm extremely excited about this team's potential.
Yes.
Not only for what I see coming out of the field, what I see internally about how the team doesn't sweat it. They don't break under pressure. They're always applying it late, understanding that their mentality is 0-0 on the scoreboard until this game is over. So that's really exciting because, guys, a lot of even these better teams have not been put in these situations. They haven't been tested. You saw Indiana today. They just got tested for the first time. And look, kudos to Penn State. Penn State's got a good roster. But you see how fast this can happen and how close some teams come just to falling apart at the seams.
Mm-hmm.
So be happy, celebrate the 900th win for UGA. Understand you're now in the upper echelon elite tier of programs of all time. You're there with the Texases, the Nebraskas.
Mm-hmm.
So understand we're watching history and just enjoy it.
Well, it's funny, Scott. I was going to let you conclude on that, but right as I said that they were winning 7-0, they scored right at the end of the second quarter there. So it's 14-0 Texas A&M over Missouri. And I'll add to your stat here. I pulled this up. Roster age breakdown. The one that has the highest percentage of freshmen is Tennessee. 50% of their roster is freshmen, and Georgia is right underneath them at 46.5% of a freshman roster. So you're saying it very well, and that's what people really will learn to understand, that if you've got a team that's full of young bucks, very talented young bucks, you're going to have to deal with those growing pains, and that's what we're seeing from a defensive side of the football. But as Scott said, you want to see that team get better and better and better to show that potential to improve, and that's what makes you special, because all it takes is for you to put it all together once you get to the playoff run, and all of a sudden you're sitting there going, where has this team been? And you're like, it's been there all the time. It's just a matter of everybody putting the right key to the right lock and having people working together, and all of a sudden the communication is better. There's less of this not understanding where you're supposed to be pre-snap, and cognitively understanding where you've got to be when the ball is snapped and doing your job, not trying to do somebody else's job, but doing your job. So as always, it's a pleasure to be with you, Scott. This is the Head on a Swivel rapid reaction to the Georgia-Mississippi State game. As always, we appreciate you joining in with us. We would like for you to be able to show up next week as we break down the Georgia versus the Mississippi State game. That will be on Monday. And as we preview, I'm going to have a busy week next week as we get ready for the Texas Longhorns coming to the classic city of Athens. They will be in Sanford Stadium on Saturday, and I can't wait for that matchup. For Scott Green, I am Chris Hayes, Coach Hayes Huddle, and we're glad you joined us this evening. As always, take care, God bless, and go Dogs.
Go Dogs.